Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Growth Almanac. I'm Ruby, your host, very passionate about growth. I believe in taking small steps, but with big ideas.
Hey everyone, my name is Shrestha, and today's topic is, I think, one of the most important attributes for you to be a good leader, which is to hire the right candidate, recruitment. I remember, Ruby, where I read that leaders spend around 10% of their time recruiting and then spend the rest of the 90% of their time making up for the recruitment mistakes.
That is so. I know I have been there.
Yeah, yes, I'm sure a lot of us have. But I want to get your perspective on it.
So, you said I'll actually first address the point that you made, which is leaders spend 10% actually on recruiting the person and then the remaining time actually figuring out what to do with the candidate they actually hired. The other aspect of this is if you do end up hiring a good employee, then you are going to reap the benefits not just for the job that they are hired for, but also growing the people around them.
Mhm.
So, my philosophy now is making sure I invest in my recruitment process so that the people that I surround myself with, the people that I hire, have skills that are complementary to me,
Mhm.
or even people within my team, definitely smarter than I am, so that we hire people who are elevating the level within our organization,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, your point, like, when you say that even smarter than I am, I think we should always try to look for recruiting somebody who is smarter than you are because um, you don't necessarily need to be the smartest person in the room, but if you are capable of identifying and recruiting smart people, and when I say smart, also be able to work as a team. Like when you're recruiting, it's not just, most often it's not one person, it's a set of people. You're building a team essentially, right? And when you do that, your job just becomes so much more simpler.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember like the way you're talking about it, right? I remember there was this person I was interviewing. It's been 3 years now, right? And I was asked, he was a senior leader, right? Like an executive level person that I had to interview. And my boss wanted me to talk to him. And he said, oh, he can do the job well. That I'm not worried about. He came recommended, he can do the job well.
Mm.
But he said, I need you to talk to him and see if he's a cultural fit in the organization and whether you will gel with him because I need that person to work with you really well.
Mm.
There was a lesson right there for me that I don't even need to interview him for his
Correct. Right.
skills.
That's very interesting because um, recruitment in itself, or hiring in general, I don't see us being taught anywhere. Nobody really teaches you. Because when I started recruiting, or when I was included in this interview process, I was just one day asked to interview, and I had to figure it out all by myself. uh, and obviously you're never good at it in the beginning, right? You eventually figure out what makes a good hire, and I think I still
So
haven't.
do you have a process that you go through?
So in the beginning, honestly, I just always thought, okay, what does
Wing
this
it. I've done that. Wing
yeah,
it.
yeah, wing it, right? Like, so I knew what skill sets a job requires. Just put that down, and evaluate she or he based on that skill set. And if that person passes, I'm like, okay, this person is perfect. But I've had one hire that did not. work well in a team setting. In fact, that hire kind of brought down team morale in general. And that's when I realized, okay, that's not all that's required. Me as a recruiter, that's my job to the best of my ability to understand if that person can work in a team setting and how you can collaborate. And also, another thing that I used to do is try and hire myself in the beginning. But then I realized that's not like I don't have to hire myself.
Hold that thought right there, right? You're exactly you. We don't need to hire our replicas.
Yeah,
Literally, it's like I want to surround myself with people who have skills that are totally complementary to me. I can do five people's worth of work for what I am good at, right?
right.
I need all the other things to have a
Yeah,
well-rounded
yeah,
organization.
yeah.
So
And
what did you change? Like how did you evolve over time?
so one of the how I started honestly is when there was a job profile or job posting put up, I sometimes used to get so many candidates who right off the bat I could tell they weren't fitting. And because attitude is important, but I still feel that is the second thing that I want to go to, provided that they have the right skill set, in the sense that they have the ability to adapt to technologies and learn. They don't have to know all the skill sets. So that first piece, I made sure that I had like a list of questions mapped out where the HRs could uh, filter the candidates out before they came to me, because at the end of the day your time is precious too, right? And you will get burnt out if you keep interviewing a lot of people. And then I would ask questions where I would put them in spots where I would be like, okay, tell me a scenario where you had to uh, deal with an outage and you had to collaborate with your team and figure out a solution. And these are the kind of things I feel like you can't really make up on the go.
Maybe a decade ago, my organization wasn't really hiring.
Mhm.
So we weren't just used to it. So then one fine day, we're like, okay, we're hiring, and I have like five candidates to interview. And I'm talking to them, and I'm like, oh, just like you said, I know what I need for my organization. And so I would just go there and wing it. And then it wouldn't work out because at
Mm.
that point, it was more like I'm asking very simple, regular questions. So then what I started doing, I actually have a very structured, like it depends on whether I'm doing panel or individual, but generally I have a policy of at least three interviews for
Mhm.
the candidate, and they are one after the other often. And I've got it as a structured, depending on the role. If it's a technical role versus a leadership role or a project manager. So if it's a technical role, I would actually have one of my technical people meet with this person for 15 minutes only to screen out for the very basics,
Mhm.
right? But if it is any other role, then I would go in a structured way with topics like organizational fit, right? Or cultural fit, product and systems thinking, stakeholder management. So I have like a set of topics for each of the individual interviewers to focus on. So that ways we're not all trying to evaluate the person for the same set of skills,
Mhm.
especially as we start looking for senior level candidates. You actually have to focus the time on, okay, we're going to talk about your experience. How did you think about it, or how did you approach the problem step by step? It could be any situation.
Yeah, I really like what you said, where you are preparing, you are investing in your interview process to make sure that particular hire is the right hire. I also read that cost of a bad hire averages to a 30% of that person's salary.
It is not, you're absolutely right. It's like I've hired one person in the past. He was actually a manager. And that's even worse because now you have 8 people reporting to you, and even productive people within the team are now starting to become unproductive because this person is not able to drive them in the same direction as a team. So, absolutely agree.
That's very interesting, Ruby. So, honestly, in my hiring process, I've only hired, uh, say, technical members within my team, right? I've never gone on to the level of hiring managers, which I feel like is a lot more challenging. I've not really faced that. What do you feel like is the difference between hiring somebody for a technical skill set versus for a manager role? How do you differentiate?
I think for a manager role, I start with systems thinking, product thinking. I
Mm,
have a strong belief that if you are joining a technical organization as a manager, you should be able to stand up for yourself without always bringing your senior engineer with you in all the presentations and meetings. So I am looking for presentation skills. I am looking for your organizational fit. I am looking for stakeholder management. I am one of my favorite questions. This one I ask actually more to the non engineer roles than the developer ones is what are your 5 tools that you cannot live without? And that answer tells me a lot
mm,
because then you can see whether they are going to be structured and disciplined or chaotic. Are they doing a lot of work manually, lot of their organization manually, or are they adapting to technology,
mm, mm.
right?
One of the points for me when I hire is also that fit, right? What does the candidate want? What are their long term roles? And does that fit with what we can offer as a company for that candidate? Because if that does not align, that person is just going to be unhappy and maybe going to quit in another few months, which then again is a bad investment on our part.
How soon do you decide, okay, I'm
I
done?
was going to come to that. That I know where you're going, but go for it.
No, I'm just asking you, how soon does it take? Like, how, when do you know, okay, I'm done?
So, I honestly, I've been wrong before when I've done this, but most of the times in the first 15 minutes is when I kind of form an opinion if that person is going to be a good fit or not.
Nice. So for me, it's like between 6 to 11 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, between 6 to 11 minutes, I would know I do not want this
Mm-hmm.
person. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then I will still go at least to the 20, and then my eyes are on my clock. I would go to the 20-minute time
Right.
because I feel like somebody has invested their time and
Right.
I need to give them an opportunity. Maybe, like you said, maybe they will change my opinion. Number one, and number two, I just think it's disrespectful. People
Yeah.
look forward to an interview. I
Right.
just don't believe in just
Yeah.
cutting short. But I
Yeah.
will say this, most of the time when I've cut short on 20 minutes, I've not regretted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also had times where I'm like hitting the 50-minute mark, 52-minute mark, and I still want to continue talking to that person because there is such a rapport built within that time. And it's like the person would say something, and I'm like, me too. And then in these cases, when they're providing an answer to a question that you've asked, you actually add to that and you give a couple more bullets for that same question. And I really enjoy those kind of
Yeah,
conversations.
I sometimes like there are candidates who want to answer everything, right? Like I know everything. Okay, that actually takes me to my next point. Resume. You spoke about having a structured and organized mindset when you're interviewing people. Do you think resumes add weightage, like the way they present themselves when resumes are filled with everything?
So my opinion has changed over time. In the past, resumes mattered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Depending on what you're looking for, is it just filled with keywords? Is it structured in a way where it's talking about outcomes, etc.? Nowadays, with I don't trust the resumes. So pretty much every resume is very
Press.
well written, right? So they're either well written, or you can tell, like there was this resume where it was like the same tech was actually mentioned 5 times, one bullet after the other. And I'm like, you don't need to say the same thing multiple times. It's like you literally copied from different job descriptions and put it out there, right? But then there's other resumes that are so well structured that you're like, this person must be really good. But then you go there and you realize they can't even answer the very basic. Even sometimes it's like, tell me about yourself. Oh, the funny one is last week, another candidate I was interviewing. So, my general approach is I go there, I introduce myself, welcome the person, introduce myself. I tell them a little bit about my career, right? Within 2 minutes, and about the company and also what the role is about. So I finish talking, and this guy starts interviewing me.
Oh,
He starts asking me questions. So, so I'm like, that's a very good
gosh.
question. How about we learn a little bit about you, and then, and then we'll get back to these questions. That was very interesting.
But yeah, like I get what you're saying. I've had candidates where, you know, in cloud, I think we give a lot of importance to certifications. I honestly don't. There are certain certifications that I do because they are, it's not very easy to get them. But these basic certifications, I've seen so many candidates where they have it, but they can't answer basic cloud questions.
I
So,
completely agree.
right, like it doesn't matter. So, yeah. And I think I always tell my team that certifications are a good validation for yourself and maybe a token to show others that you know something, but I would never just hold that as your skill set because you need.
I am totally in agreement with you. I have similar experience and similar viewpoint, if you
Mhm.
may, when we talk about. I like, yeah, if you have certifications, fine, that is
Yeah.
good. But when I'm looking at the resume, certification is not the first thing. That I look at all your skills, how well structured your resume is, whether you have different kind of experiences across your different jobs or over the years. And then, yes, if there's a certification, fine, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And I have one last question, Ruby. Does it matter to you when you are recruiting which college they graduated from and if they have masters versus bachelors? Like, I want to get a view of that.
It doesn't anymore. At one point in my early career, it did matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because I was haughty, and maybe because I came from a good engineering school, so I thought so. But at this point, if the person, I mean, they do, so part of it is in the organizations or the jobs that we are in. Yes, a college degree is required for the kind of roles that I hire for. Having said that, I am not biased for college. I am not biased for the advanced degrees. If the person does have the skill set and the experience, I am the one that will give that candidate an opportunity. How about you?
I have a similar thought about it. Like you said, I think the basic qualification is required where that person needs to have an engineering degree of some sort. But beyond that, if that person is intelligent, emotionally and technically intelligent, then I think that's what I would give priority.
Have you ever run into a scenario where, you go through not a panel, but like sequentially? So in our case, we had this particular candidate, I had him be interviewed by three people that are in my organization that I really trust. Person one, person two, all very strong people. So they all took care of the technical interviews. And then the person comes to me and I'm talking. So this was mine was generally supposed to just be a stamp. Okay. And he comes to me and I'm talking to him and I'm like, oh, he doesn't know basic
Oh,
skills in the language that I need him to be a developer in. Like
okay.
that's my instinct telling me that.
Okay.
Okay. And I haven't written code in a long time. So now I'm trying to interview him on Java. So I asked a couple basic questions, and then while I'm on the call, I'm like Googling, I'm like Java interview questions. So I could just basic, like I was asking him about threads and thread
Mhm.
pools, and he couldn't answer. So then, of course, we didn't take him. And then I spoke to my team, and, it was very interesting that when I spoke to them, they all said, yeah, so the person who interviewed first, he said, I thought he was okay. And so I said, let him move forward. Let's try. And this often happens when you're not getting a good candidate and you've already interviewed 8 to 10 candidates. And then you're like, okay, maybe let's give this one a try because he's better than the rest of them,
Right.
right? So he let the guy move forward. The second one says, yeah, I don't think he's where I would like to have him, but that person who's really smart passed him, so let me pass.
Oh, okay.
So we had such a good time talking about it. So again, the concept of social agreement or assumed social agreement is what was also
Actually, yeah, no, that is true because I've had one candidate that came to me. I usually do the second round, and the first round interviewer, I trust that person a lot. I trust
right.
their judgment. And when that person came to me and I knew they weren't the right fit, and I went back and I was like, what did you feel? I wanted to understand their thought process as to why they uh, sent them over, and then it turned out to be a referral from another good candidate. But referrals are not always
No,
good.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah.
completely agree. What are some red flags for you?
Um, So one red flag is when I look at their resume and they've not spent enough time in a company, when like less than a year
And they're switching. Yeah.
consecutively. Yeah. Like say I've had a candidate who kept switching every few months, and for me this is investment. I am going to, it's not just my interview investment, but also once I get them into my team, I put in so much investment into training, and I wouldn't want to lose that person in the next few months, and train somebody and send them to somewhere else. So that's one red flag for me. What
That's
about you?
so we had this candidate that we were interviewing, and we gave him a coding question saying, here's a scenario. How would you design this? Walk through your design thought process. Right? So the guy starts thinking, and then he says, hey, let me just share and show you, right? And he's got his notepad open and he's got ChatGPT opened on another tab, right? And at the time, the guys who interviewed him, they said no, like he was looking at ChatGPT and answering. In today's state, I'm not sure whether that is a red flag for me. I know you're asking my red flag. It used to be a red flag, but I have changed my opinion. Now it depends on how it is being used by the person versus the fact that maybe somebody attempted to use ChatGPT. Now, maybe during the interview, don't use it, but before the interview, if you've prepared with it, if your resume has content from there, to me, in today's day and age, if you're not using AI, there is a problem. Anyways, it's such an experience. It's an art actually.
No,
It's an art.
yeah, because you don't have like a university course that you can learn for this, right? It's all you.
Nobody prepares you for
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
No,
And
no.
you can be the best or the worst at your job based on your recruiting skills. Because if you don't have the right people, you're basically doing their job, and that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that you can do.
One of the things that I have done is I pair two people, like a person who's good at interviewing
Mm-hmm.
and another person who I feel like is um, very good at his own job, but maybe is not experienced at recruiting. So I just pair them up for this other person to actually grow or just listen in and learn from
Very
that.
good. Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
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 something
great.
that has worked for my org once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This I've learned so much from you, Ruby. Thank you so much because
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Shrestha. I love your stories, and they are so relatable. They're like you tell your stories, and I'm like, I know what you're talking about. I felt that too.
I know. That's what I've been feeling when you were talking today. And like, although I think you are at a much higher level where you've had so much experience, which is why I wanted to learn about your thought process on this. So thank you so much for sharing that with me.
No, no, absolutely welcome, and thank you again. And we will to our listeners. What do you want to tell them?
Well, I would say that you don't have to be perfect when you start hiring because everybody has their own journey. Nobody can teach you how to be the best. You learn through your experiences, but you'll get there.
And just prepare a little
Yep.
bit, think
Yep.
about it. And this is true for anything that you're about to do. Think about, just give yourself 5 minutes to think about what you're about to do, get your thoughts organized, and just prepare and go in and have a conversation. That's
Yep.
basically what it is. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you.